all of these cultural and linguistic challenges, here are my suggestions, for what they're worth, for how Russian universities can increase their publication visibility and ensure that their students and professors get their paper published in top international journals, and I've touched on some of these already. First, as I said earlier, Russian universities need to have their professors of English and academic writing introduce the concept of contrastive rhetoric and all the points I have raised today, all of which are not only in my book, but in a number of books on writing in English, in the very first years of the student's academic education. Moreover, these professors need to give the students writing homework, such as practice with a 5-paragraph essay, to give them practice in and familiarity with constructing arguments according to empirical Aristotelian argumentation. I mean, the 5-paragraph essay is arguing according to Aristotle and Euclid. They don't tell us this when we're kids. They just tell us, write the 5-paragraph essay. If necessary, I can make myself available for teacher training or developing teacher training in this area. Second, to ensure the publication outcome that they want, the question is, where should Russian universities best invest their money? And 7 ideas immediately come to me. 1, invest in travel grants for sending scholars to international conferences, whether in Europe, the UK, the US, not only to present and receive feedback on their papers, but also to increase international awareness of the research being done at your universities. 2, invest in travel grants for sending scholars to the most important conferences in their field, such as the annual conference of the American Anthropological Association, which has many hundreds of attendees from all around the globe showing up every year. Even if your scholars are not presenting papers, they may still be able to present a poster which will attract people interested in their work. But most important, they can meet, listen to, keep up with, and possibly network with the top international scholars in their fields. Such contacts and potential for collaboration and co-authorship are invaluable. 3, as I said earlier, invest in subscribing to all the journals in the fields taught at your university. Without such subscriptions, your students and faculty can read only the abstracts online because each paper costs money. They can ask for $25 per paper. Okay? But if the universities subscribe to these various publishers and publication groups, then all students and faculty will be able to keep up to date on research in their field. And moreover, you don't need to necessarily subscribe only to the best journals, because not everyone can write well enough or have ideas brilliant enough, not even native speakers, to get in the best journals. And instead, many scholars publish their first papers in less impressive but still solidly respectable journals and then move up from there. So all journals should be available. This is an incredibly important investment. One of the global science students from a university somewhere in Siberia said, how can I keep up? We don't have access to those journals. How do I know what people have published? It's a problem, and that's a problem. Number 4, invest in purchasing books in English, whether textbooks such as mine or even style manuals such as the US Chicago Manual of Style or the UK Newhart's Rules, so that students can at least have access to them in the library. Invest in anthologies on certain topics for classroom use, or in books in English by the most prominent thinkers in their fields. The more that your students and faculty read books and papers in English rather than in translation, the better they will be able to get the feel of its academic style, and the better they will be able to write in that style. 5, invest in funding empirical research projects so that your students and faculty can get their hands on statistical data, or so that they can have the funding and technological equipment for conducting and transcribing interviews. provide financial support for all authors using field data, with special grants for gathering data, conducting interviews, doing content analysis, buying books, going to conferences, paying for editorial services, and so on. Grants can also help people who want to take a new approach to existing data, an approach that can yield results that are useful to the entire international community. All of these types of grants are available throughout Europe and the US, sometimes provided by the university, sometimes by various government bodies, sometimes by public and private organizations that support research in certain fields. In the hard sciences in particular, we distinguish in English, a person in the humanities or in the social sciences is not a scientist. A scientist in English is someone who does biology, chemistry, engineering, and so on. And we call those the hard sciences. Scholars spend as much time fundraising as they do conducting their scientific research, because if there's no funding, there is no research. And yet, even in the social sciences, scholars at social research institutes are always writing proposals to the State Research Council, like in Denmark or Switzerland, or other funding organizations, because without funding, they can't do the empirical research. They can't get their hands on the statistical material and payment for someone to analyze the statistics and so on. And without the research, there are no papers. 6, encourage postdocs and faculty to apply as visiting scholars to Australia, Europe, the UK, the US, Canada, and to universities there that specialize in their area of research. Encourage them to either correspond with or meet faculty from such universities and colleges in hopes of getting an invitation to spend a semester there. If such invitations come through, invest in sending the scholar to study and do research abroad. The experience will not only improve their English, but also cross-pollinate with theory and research being done in other countries. Such experiences usually lead to international collaboration, often with a native speaker of English, which therefore improves the chances for publication, and again, getting your university internationally known. For example, when I give a lecture series twice a year at the University of California at Berkeley for the visiting scholars and postdocs, they come from Brazil, Vietnam, Pakistan, India, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, but I see almost no Russians. Think of the potential if you had Russian visiting scholars at Berkeley. This is incredible. And the people they can meet and the way ideas can spread among not just the visiting postdocs, but also with the American professors and scholars there. Last, number 7. Invest in sustaining the global science experiment. Ask any of the participants about its value to them in learning what to do and how to do it to maximize their chances of getting published in English. I have never seen any group in 10 years of working, 11 years of working in Europe, I've never seen any group work so hard to overcome their cultural biases. Of course, in typically Russian fashion, they also made me work harder than I had ever worked, and with tremendous benefit on both sides. The strength of this experiment was that the participants came from related fields, international relations and political science, so that I was able to customize the course material from them. I was able to use sentences and paragraphs from their descriptions in English of their research projects, so that they had personalized experience in group editing and in learning how to write more clearly. I truly urge you to invest in continuing this project by helping the Russian International Affairs Council to create more of these courses in different fields, and perhaps even to host these courses and these conferences at your universities. The idea is to create a core of young scholars who have years of publishing ahead of them, all trained in the details, principles, and unwritten subtleties of writing in academic English. Moreover, At the follow-up training session that we had 6 months after the original 6-day training, I noticed one striking change. Excuse me. The participants had all become extremely good critics of one another's writing. Whereas originally they had looked at the writing through Russian cultural eyes, they were now commenting on one another's writing from the perspective of the demands of academic English. Where is the niche? Where is the purpose statement? Why did the writer get so long to take to the point? Why are there so many conclusions but not enough supporting data? And so on.